Cyclopean, the Great Abyss is a Lovecraftian dungeon crawler in the vein of Ultima that came out of early access recently, July 2025 in case you are watching this sometime in the far future. The visual style, as can be seen here, is quite unique in a good way. It's monochrome like Game Boy or Virtual Boy, but you can change the main color in the menu. Visually it surpasses most AAA slops simply by having a distinct style instead of trying to shove the latest soulless 3D models in your face. The downside is that sometimes you can get a bit difficult making things out due to the blurry graphics. However, you'll get used to it eventually. Cyclopean is a short but sour game. Not sweet, since it's a Lovecraftian game dealing with cosmic horror. The setting is the dreamlands in the mythos of H.P. Lovecraft, best known for the Call of Cthulhu. Particularly, you are stuck in the abyss part of the dreamlands and have to find your way out. While over the decades various games inspired explicitly or implicitly by Lovecraft's work have hit the market, few have focused on the dreamlands. It's inhabited by zoogs, ghouls, cats, nightgaunts, and gugs, among a few other things from the horror mythos. Depending on the character you roll and the actions you take, they can become your allies, foes, or remain neutral. The locations you visit are familiar from Lovecraft's stories, such as the Vale of Nath, the Vaults of Zin, and the Tower of Koth. Not sure if the Library of Leng is there though. Oh wait, that's from Magic the Gathering. I couldn't tell you how accurately or faithfully geography is depicted in the game in relation to Lovecraft's novels though. Yet I suppose a place called the Dreamlands wouldn't be too strict about such details anyway. The atmosphere when exploring caves and ruins tends to be appropriately oppressive regardless. There are two modes of gameplay: the overworld resembling an Ultima game, and the first-person grid-based dungeon mode. The majority of time spent with Cyclopean passes while inside of a dungeon, but the overworld has its own share of exploration and treasure hunting to be done as well. Although overall the world map is not that large. The dungeons, however, are. Exploring every nook and cranny and finding all the secrets while dealing with the horrifying and hostile inhabitants takes time and effort. On top of that, the layout of the dungeon seems to differ based on each location's unique characteristics. Cave systems feel claustrophobic and chaotic, whereas lost cities are more spacious with streets and ruined buildings. A lot of care no doubt went into the level design. Your party initially consists of a single character that is generated completely randomly. The player cannot distribute any stats until the first level up. Rerolling until the end of time is permitted though. Over the course of the game you can get allies to join your party if you have an alliance with the race the creature belongs to. To form an alliance you need to find a certain kind of tone in a dungeon and possess enough intelligence to read it. Allying with one race usually means making an enemy of another though. Most other creatures tend to despise the cats that helped me fight my way through the Dreamlands, unfortunately. Encounters with the denizens of the Dreamlands happen one-on-one. At first you choose whether to fight, sneak, or converse with the creature. Most creatures you meet prefer to engage in combat instead of talking. Unlike most RPGs, you do not have a party of characters to aid you in combat, and the same applies to your enemies. Once in combat you can choose to attack, marshal an ally to attack and risk itself to take the damage dealt by the enemy instead, or to flee. The allies function more like optional attacks instead of actual party members. Assuming you don't die, often at the latter part of combat, once hit points are low enough, the enemy becomes demotivated, allowing you to converse with it, or to finish it off with a sneak attack. The stealth approach has a few intriguing options. Ambush is a good way of starting a fight with a bang, Pilfer allows you to steal an item from an enemy, which is something I didn't use much. Sneak is useful from sneaking away from enemies that are too strong. However, the last option, capture, felt overpowered. Provided you've gotten your hands on a net, capturing allows you to enslave and rid yourself of an enemy with a single successful die roll. A bit of save scumming is occasionally required though. The diplomacy mode enables you to ask a willing denizen of the Dreamlands questions about other races or locations in a manner reminiscent of Morrowind. You can also trade items with people, and provided an alliance exists with the race in question, you can ask them to join your party. In addition to being useful in combat, allies can also provide bonuses to your stats or to replenish or drain your sanity depending on the nature of the creature. There are no towns with shops and NPCs to visit, although there are a few merchants in the game. Also, each monster you encounter is in a sense both a friendly NPC and an enemy. Mechanistically, Cyclopean is rather simple, but not too simplistic. The gameplay is quite dynamic. Despite the dungeons being rather large, it felt like I could accomplish something in just a single hour of gameplay, as the fights don't drag on for too long. The game is fairly short though, as it took me only about 10 hours to finish it. There are a few different ways of escaping the abyss. I managed to find two ways so far, but as far as I can tell, there are at least four different ways. Without going too far into spoilers, I can say that one method requires discovering and reading a certain manuscript and going to a certain place. Another exit needs you to discover an item to open the way, and one exit is just in a hard to reach place. There's also a character that eats up a lot of your sanity when you encounter him. I assume he can get you out as well, but my mind was too weak for the task. So far, I've been praising the game, but Cyclopean is not perfect. Toward the end of the game, the mechanics began to feel a bit light and the game was a tad too easy, as even big and scary monsters could be handled by capturing or sneaking past them. At some point in the game, the oppressive Lovecraftian atmosphere was gradually replaced by a rational approach of systematically mapping of dungeons and dispatching of enemies. The wonder and dread that lingered in the air when entering the first few dungeons in the beginning of the game was no longer there when entering the last one. Having to look out for the same kind of spike traps every step you take did get a bit old by the end too. Fortunately though, Cyclopean didn't outlast its welcome as eventually I found a way to finish the game. The music isn't really anything to write home about. Most of the time I didn't pay much attention to it, but on occasion it did contribute to the eerie atmosphere while exploring an abandoned underground city. Cyclopean was made by Schmidt Workshops, who I believe to be a single developer. In that case, I would certainly commend him on his efforts. The game may not be perfect, but certainly is one of the most interesting games to be released in 2025 so far. Yet I've hardly seen it mentioned on social media. If you like H.P. Lovecraft, old school dungeon crawlers, or are drawn to the graphical style, I think you will enjoy Cyclopean the same as I did. I could find no trace of Nyarlathotep though. Shouldn't he be represented in the Dreamlands? Or perhaps I've simply failed to discover the traces of his handiwork in the game.